In the heart of London, in the year 1888, a series of brutal murders gripped the city. The killer, who came to be known as Jack the Ripper, left a trail of fear, mystery, and unsolved questions. His reign of terror in the Whitechapel district became one of the most infamous crime sprees in history. London was the largest city in the world at the time, a bustling metropolis fueled by the Industrial Revolution. However, the city's East End was marked by poverty, overcrowding, and crime. Whitechapel, in particular, was infamous for its slums and squalid living conditions. Whitechapel was the perfect setting for a killer to go unnoticed. The maze-like streets and alleyways were poorly lit, and the police presence was weak. The area was home to thousands of prostitutes, who often faced violence and crime. It was here that Jack the Ripper found his victims. On August 31, 1888, the body of Mary Ann Nichols, a 43-year-old prostitute, was discovered in Bucks Row. Her throat had been slashed, and her abdomen was mutilated. This was the first confirmed victim of Jack the Ripper. Just a week later, on September 8, 1888, the mutilated body of Annie Chapman was found near a doorway in Hanbury Street. Her throat had been cut, and her organs had been removed with surgical precision, indicating the killer had some anatomical knowledge. The police and newspapers began receiving taunting letters allegedly from the killer. The most infamous of these was the Dear Boss letter, signed Jack the Ripper, which gave the murderer his chilling name. In response to the murders and the perceived failure of the police, local residents formed the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Led by George Lusk, they patrolled the streets, hoping to catch the killer. Though their efforts proved fruitless, they added pressure on the authorities and kept public fear alive. On the night of September 30, 1888, the body of Elizabeth Stride was found in Dutfield's yard. Unlike the other victims, her body was not mutilated, leading many to believe that the killer had been interrupted before he could complete his grisly work. Less than an hour after Stride's body was found, Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square. Her throat was slashed, and her face was disfigured, along with severe abdominal mutilations. This marked the killer's most horrific act yet. Near the scene of Eddowes' murder, a piece of Catherine Eddowes' apron was found, leading to Golston Street. Above the apron, a cryptic message was scrawled on the wall, reading, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." This added to the mystery surrounding the case. On November 9, 1888, the body of Mary Jane Kelly was found in her room in Miller's Court. This was the most gruesome of all the murders, with Kelly's body disfigured beyond recognition. It would be the last murder officially attributed to Jack the Ripper. The sensational nature of the murders led to an unprecedented media frenzy. Newspapers competed for stories, often exaggerating details to sell copies. Jack the Ripper became a household name, and the public became obsessed with the mystery. The Metropolitan Police and City of London Police were heavily criticized for their handling of the case. The disorganized response, lack of forensic techniques, and the confusion between jurisdictions hampered the investigation. Scotland Yard was brought in to assist with the investigation, but despite their efforts, the killer eluded capture. Inspector Frederick Aberline led the case, conducting interviews, following leads, and even considering suspects, but the Ripper's identity remained a mystery. One of the primary suspects was Montague John Druitt, a barrister whose body was found in the Thames shortly after the last murder. Some believe he committed suicide due to guilt, though evidence linking him to the murders was circumstantial. John Pizer, a bootmaker known as Leather Apron, was one of the earliest suspects. His reputation for violence against prostitutes made him a prime candidate in the early days of the investigation. However, he was cleared of any involvement, but the fear surrounding his name contributed to the panic. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant, was another suspect. He was a mentally ill man living in Whitechapel at the time of the murders, and some police officials later pointed to him as the Ripper. However, no definitive evidence was ever found. One of the most outlandish theories suggests that the murders were part of a royal conspiracy involving Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence. According to this theory, the Ripper murders were a cover-up to protect the royal family from scandal. Dr. Thomas Neill Cream, a convicted murderer, was another potential suspect. Some believed that he committed the Ripper murders before being hanged for other crimes, although the timeline makes this theory improbable. The painter Walter Sickert was accused of being Jack the Ripper by crime writer Patricia Cornwell. She argued that his art and behavior indicated he had an obsession with the murders, though this theory remains highly controversial. The murders had a profound impact on Victorian society, highlighting issues of poverty, inequality, and the failure of law enforcement. The Ripper murders coincided with the rise of penny dreadfuls, cheap, sensationalized serial stories that depicted crime and horror. Jack the Ripper became a perfect subject for these publications, further fueling the public's obsession with the case and immortalizing his image in popular media. The failures of the police in solving the Jack the Ripper case exposed significant flaws in the justice system and sparked calls for reform. In response, the Metropolitan Police Force introduced several new measures, including better record-keeping, improved coordination between departments, and early forensic techniques that laid the foundation for modern investigative methods. The fear Jack the Ripper instilled in Londoners persisted long after the murders stopped. Women, especially those in Whitechapel, were afraid to walk the streets at night. The public began to perceive the city's East End as a symbol of moral decay and lawlessness, cementing a dark legacy for the area. Psychologists and criminologists have long debated the mental state of Jack the Ripper. The brutal, yet precise nature of the killings suggests the work of a sadistic individual with a deep-seated hatred for women. Some theorize that Jack the Ripper may have been a psychopath or suffered from severe mental illness, driving his violent tendencies. In recent years, criminologists and forensic psychologists have used modern profiling techniques to analyze Jack the Ripper. By studying the known details of the murders, experts theorize that the killer likely had deep-seated psychological issues, potentially including psychopathy and a need for power over his victims. Recent advances in forensic science have led to new developments in the case. In 2014, researchers claimed to have extracted DNA from a shawl believed to have belonged to one of the Ripper's victims. However, the reliability of these findings has been questioned, and the mystery remains unsolved. More than a century after the murders, interest in Jack the Ripper has not waned. Numerous books, documentaries, and tours through Whitechapel still draw thousands of people intrigued by the unsolved mystery. Jack the Ripper has become a symbol of the enduring enigma that grips the public imagination. While the identity of the killer dominates discussions, it's important to remember the victims of Jack the Ripper. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly were real people, each with a story and a life tragically cut short. Their names are often overshadowed by the mystery of their killer, but their lives deserve recognition. The Jack the Ripper case is one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in history, but it is far from the only one. The mystery surrounding the case has led it to be compared to other infamous cold cases, like the Zodiac Killer in the United States or the Black Dahlia murder. If the Ripper murders were to happen today, it's likely that modern investigative techniques, including DNA profiling, surveillance, and advanced forensic methods, would have provided clearer answers. With the technology available now, the odds of a killer like Jack the Ripper evading capture would be significantly lower. The ongoing speculation about Jack the Ripper's identity raises ethical questions. While there is great interest in solving the case, many have argued that the focus on the killer overshadows the tragedy of the victims. Additionally, some of the theories have been criticized for racial or class biases, reflecting broader issues in Victorian society. The mystery of Jack the Ripper continues to haunt the public's imagination. While the murders have become part of history, they still resonate today as a reminder of the darkness that lurks within society. As long as the case remains unsolved, the story of Jack the Ripper will continue to be retold, leaving future generations to ponder the identity of the world's most infamous serial killer. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and follow us for more mysteries. Be sure to check our profile for other intriguing videos.